Hello there, all you happy people. Welcome to another episode of the Dan Wickline Show. Starring me, Dan Wickline. Kind of fits, doesn't it? Yeah. I've been keeping the Dan Wickline Show name, but that's was never my intent for Sunday nights. It was always supposed to be Popco the Writers and supposed to be doing partners on here. And it's always more fun to have someone to chit chat with. And maybe I'll look into that again in the new year because I do enjoy doing the show and talking about the latest news and stuff. We had some good news this weekend, or some big news, definitely some big news. The casting of Brainiac for the DCU. There's still talk about what's going on with the next Batman movie, and yeah, um, of course we got the boy. We were all off on Brainiac, were we? I mean, because see, okay, Jay, that's going to take us right into the topic. Um, some of you may not know, but we have our Brainiac, and this is him. Let's see, I got a picture of him. His name is Lars Eidinger, and he's German. And I don't mean like, oh, his family's from Germany. I mean, just he is German. He's a German actor. Actually, when you look him up, it's kind of funny because you look at him, and that was a decent picture of him. He's got some where his hair is just kind of, it's like somebody threw a wig on it and didn't straighten it out yet, but it's his hair. Does that make any sense? Just kind of plump. And I know I don't shouldn't talk about hair being that what I've got, but yeah, they're not the most flattering pictures of him. But when when you look him up and you say, okay, well, what has he done? Da da da. There's a bug flying by. Um, he calls him an actor and rapper, and now I want nothing more than to see him rap because that's kind of amazing. I've never heard of a German rapper before. I don't even know, you know, what that would be like. You know, it's like a German comedian. I don't know. So, yeah, I was pretty intrigued. So I looked him up, and like I said, German actor and rapper, and he's been in a lot of things, but some of them have just been background. Like he's in the recent Jay Kelly movie on Netflix with George Clooney and Adam Sandler, which is supposed to be a great movie. But he plays German cyclist. But then, he's been in these other things like All the Light We Cannot See, which was this 4-episode miniseries with Mark Ruffalo that's supposed to be really good. He was in Kafka, something called The Dying, Dead Languages, their language, Babylon Berlin, White Noise. So, he's got quite the pedigree as an actor, but it's stuff that the majority of us haven't seen. And I think that's why a lot of people went, wait, what? Who? And that's fine because um, I'd like to remind you guys about another casting James Gunn made. This was for Peacemaker Season 1, a gentleman named Chukwudi Iwuji. Now, besides the fact that I had to figure out how the hell to say that name and spell it when I was covering the stuff, Chukwudi was great as Myrn in Season 1 of Peacemaker, and he was even better as the High Evolutionary in Guardians 3. Now, this wasn't somebody Gunn had worked with before. He found the guy through auditions and went with him, and he's great. So, and I know a lot of people were actually talking about Chukwudi coming back to play. Um, hey, we're dopes. Um, Chukwudi coming back to play the Brainiac, but he went outside, and if you look at the facial structure of the guy, and I've already seen fan art done. this guy looks like he's going to work. And he's done some villain roles. He's done some other stuff like that. So I have no problem with this at all. But what I'm seeing online is people saying James Gunn lied to us. Like what? James Gunn lied to us. What how did he lie to you? Well, he said Brainiac wasn't in the movie. I'm like, no, no, he didn't. The actual quote is when he's referring to the fact that people were coming out and saying, "Oh, it's going to be Matt Smith. Oh, it's going to be I can't even remember how to pronounce his name. The guy from Dracula, from Stephen Moffat's Dracula. Oh, it's going to be Dave Bautista, and Dave Bautista's the one that got. Hey, Ed, good to see you. Dave Bautista's the one that got Gunn to come out and say, that's not happening. It's not going to be Dave Bautista, and I've never even said that Brainiac was in the movie. I haven't confirmed that. Now, when he says I haven't confirmed that, it doesn't mean he's saying that it's not gonna be Brainiac. He's just saying that look, there's a lot of speculation and people are running with this when it's not confirmed stuff coming from me. So don't believe the stuff you're reading unless he goes on here and he confirms and denies and confirms and denies. So why are we still kind of taking these rumor mongers, and I'm going to start using that term, rumor mongers, because they charge people for their rumors. It's like, oh, you subscribe and it's subscribe you to these things to find out these rumors, and the majority of them aren't even true. you know? And then what also happens is you get people excited for things. And then when it doesn't turn out to be the case, people's expectations are then dashed and they turn against the movie. And like, well, why didn't Gunn get Matt Smith? Matt Smith would have been perfect. I think he should have went with Matt Smith. And Gunn's over here going, Matt Smith didn't even audition. I've never talked to the guy about the role. He didn't screen test for it. So, the way what's happening is we are in a way destroying the industry we love. Now, see, I don't know about you, but I started reading comics when I was 5 years old. I got my first comic. My uncle brought one for me and my brother, and my brother, of course, seems to be allergic to reading, uh, and for fun. He can read fine. I don't want to start anything like that, but he doesn't read for fun. So he gave me his comic when he was 8 and I was 5. Fine with me. I'm good with that. So I ended up with 2 comics, and then after that, 100, and then 1,000, and now I've got like 30 long boxes or something like that. Anyway, um, when I was growing up, these were the characters that meant a lot to me. These were my modern myths. This is the stuff, but for a lot of it, it felt like I was in an exclusive club. These were my characters. Nobody else had them. If I turned to my brother and said, "Oh yeah, the Peacemaker," he'd be like, "What's a Peacemaker?" Or isn't that George Clooney Nicole Kidman movie? No, no. Some of these characters were so obscure, but Blue Beetle, Booster Gold, Sleepwalker for Marvel, things like that. Omega the Unknown. Nobody knew who these characters were. And the idea that we might get one of them on TV was just mind blowing. When the Reb Brown Captain America movies were on the air, or Lou Ferrigno's Hulk, and Daredevil's going to be in the Hulk, Thor's going to be in the Hulk. That was the highlights for us. Oh, there's a Doctor Strange movie with the guy that has curly hair. It's okay. We're going to still watch it. Crazy Quilt never got us any love. You're right. Crazy Quilt never has. and he deserves it. Yeah. But you know, flash forward now, 50 years later, and I'm watching sports, and they're quoting comic books or comic book movies. I'm watching the news, and they're doing it. I remember back, wow, 10 years ago, uh, this guy Van Jones, who's on CNN, was talking about Donald Trump, and this was before Trump even won, and before Trump was being taken seriously. Van said, "Look, this guy is like um, Sebastian Shaw in the X-Men comics. The more you hit him, the stronger he gets." And I remember watching that on the news, going, "He just referenced the guy from the Hellfire Club on CNN." And I reached out to Van that night through Twitter, and I was working for Bleeding Cool at the time. And I said, "Hey, it would be awesome to have you come on. Let me do an interview with you for Bleeding Cool." And he did. So I got to interview him. But again, nowadays somebody talks about, the Dodgers, and it's how bringing all these great players, it's like forming the Avengers. I lived in a world where no one knew who the hell the Avengers were except for the people that read comic books. You know, how many people really knew who Iron Man was before Robert Downey Jr. took it on the role? I mean, they referred to it as C and D list characters when Marvel was first coming out because they had, sold off all the rights to all the other characters. So now we have people who take sides. They, oh, this is going to be horrible because, it's not this guy directing. It's not, no, it can't be that actor. And, and then these scoopers come out and they say all this stuff. And people are like, what do you mean? This guy isn't going to be the character. That's, why did you take it away from him? It's like, they didn't take it away from him. And that's what's going on. So when James Gunn comes out and goes, "Look, I didn't confirm that," he's trying to tell you that don't always believe what these scoopers say, because a lot of this stuff is just getting made up, and they don't take any responsibility when they're wrong. How many scoopers do you know have come out and said, "Hey, everybody who paid for this scoop, I was wrong. I'm going to refund your money"? Think any of them? They don't even come out and say, "Hey, I was wrong." But, they still happily take your money. And they put another scoop behind the firewall that's just as likely to be false as it is to be true. You know? I mean, what kind of, go with the sports analogy, what kind of batting average do these guys have? Are they getting one out of every five scoops right? 200 hitter in baseball, that's not good. You know? What we've created an industry around an industry. We've created a superhero industry that needs material and people who get paid to come up with information before anybody else, and they lie about it, or they go with scoops that really aren't verified or have any real semblance of being true, but they run with it because they'll get the clicks. And negative, oh god, if it's a negative story, even better. And it's not just superhero. I mean, there's a, yeah, I keep going to sports analogies, but this weekend the Panthers played the Buccaneers, and the current quarterback for the Buccaneers is a guy named Baker Mayfield. And Baker was with the Cleveland Browns when he got drafted. They traded him to the Carolina Panthers, and he was with the Panthers for about half a season, and he didn't play well. and the Panthers let him go. He ended up on the Rams for a couple games, one of which was a Monday night game. He literally left Carolina, got on the plane, flew, landed, and then played for the Rams. Ended up playing for the Rams that night and winning, getting the game-winning drive at the end. Amazing game. And he ended up going to the Buccaneers and has kind of turned his world around. But there's this narrative that he was mad at the Carolina Panthers because they cut him. And it's like, that's not what happened. What happened was he was traded for, wasn't playing well. They decided to switch quarterbacks and move him down the depth chart. And when they did that, he asked to be released because he didn't want to be the third string quarterback on the team. Now, Sam Darnold was moved up, and now Sam's not even with the team either. But, you know, he got his wish. He went to the Rams, and it was the start to turning things around for him. But everybody was playing this weekend like, oh, yeah, Baker has an anger towards this is his revenge game against the Panthers. He's angry at them. It's like, okay, first thing, the majority of the people that he played for weren't even with the team anymore. The head coach was gone. The general manager was gone. The whole coaching staff was different. Who was he getting revenge against? See, it's this narrative, and they do that in comics all the time. This guy is angry. That guy is angry. Oh, James Gunn hurt Henry Cavill and callously fired him. Well, if you actually read the story, James was hired to make a Superman movie with no intention of it being Henry Cavill. It was going to be like Matt Reeves as Batman. It was going to be off to the side. And then when Black Adam blew up, as in bad, it didn't do well, they cut the Rock loose and they gave James Gunn DC. And, Gunn never invited him back. This was all because of Dwayne. Dwayne wanted a Superman Black Adam movie. But the negative narrative is there. So let's see. Ed says, and if you did read comics and knew those characters you laughed at, now we're the cool people with the comics. Yeah, I know. My life just 20 years ago. What do you do for? Oh, I write comic books. Really? I'd say I write comics. Oh, for what? With comedians? Like no. But then now it's like, oh, really? Who do you work for? Marvel or DC? Well, no, I work for some of the independent companies, but I work for the company that does The Boys. Oh my God, the haters need to twist words to fit the narrative, though. They do. Hail Hydra AJ. Unfortunately, negativity sells. That's see. We live in short attention span theater. People don't even actually watch all the videos nowadays. They'll see a headline, they'll click, they'll hear the first line or two, and then they'll click away. Now, the guy who put up the story, or the girl that put up the story, gets the attention, but then, you end up with untruths out there, and you start guiding people towards feelings, and you influence people towards their feelings, and it's not based on truth. I mean, look, let's just do some basic facts here. When Zack Snyder took over DC, or basically DCU, EU, it was Christopher Nolan, who had just done 3 successful Batman movies, and they wanted him to kind of guide the rest of the DC universe. And he is the one that brought in Zack Snyder, and the first Man of Steel was made. And then after that, there was hit or miss. And the problem, one of the major problems was Warner Brothers was kind of all over the place. They'd be like, yeah, let's go this direction. Oh, wait, no, let's go that direction. No, let's go this direction. They wanted to follow Marvel, but at the same time, they had people who were going different directions. And if you think about it, I mean, You had Man of Steel did pretty good. Wonder Woman did great. Aquaman did great. They were building something. But, Batman versus Superman, it did well, but at the same time, people were like, wait, no, this is not good. And then when Justice League came out, that Warner Brothers was so scared of what was going on that as soon as Zach had to step away because of a family emergency, they brought in Joss Whedon to go a completely different direction with that movie, and you ended up with a mess. And basically, when Warner Brothers lost faith in it, the audience has lost faith in it, but also there's a reason why, Wonder Woman was Wonder Woman in a lot of ways. But, was Gal Gadot the right Wonder Woman? Maybe. Her second movie was horrible, you know? And how do you look at that first movie? You go, it's the same creative team. Everybody's the same. How did we go from, this amazing first movie to this cringeworthy second movie? Shazam was another one. The first Shazam movie was good. The second one was like, eh? Now, I'll give credit that the second Aquaman movie was still pretty good. And if James Wan still wants to play in the DCU, I think James Gunn should let him, give him something else to play with. But, the thing is that the characters that Zack Snyder were playing with were from a very specific era that I don't think are a good representation of the characters overall. It's from a very specific, 80s or 90s aesthetic, the Dark Knight Rises, Death of Superman, that aesthetic. And where, it becomes kind of one note after a while. There's a reason they don't do those kind of comics anymore, or they don't have that tone, because you need to change it up. So, yeah. And that's why, what James Gunn is doing is kind of interesting, because, and we talked about this last week with the Supergirl trailer. Yeah, Supergirl kind of feels like a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, but it's not a James Gunn movie. It's Craig Gillespie, the guy that did Cruella and I, Tonya. The musical choices in there. If you look at what Craig Gillespie did in his other movies, he did that kind of thing too. So, oh, hey, Thomas, how you doing? Good to see you. Actually, we just talked about that earlier, Thomas. Lars Eidinger is a German actor, and he hasn't done a lot in U.S. markets. He was in that Mark Ruffalo miniseries. All the lights, all the light we cannot see. He was in that and supposedly really good in it. He was in White Noise and was really good in it. But a lot of his stuff are German movies. The most recent thing he's in that was an American movie is Jay Kelly, the George Clooney movie on Netflix right now. But he had a very small part. So, yeah, he's not a guy that a lot of people know of. He's a German actor and rapper. Again, that just makes me laugh. But, you know, he auditioned for the role. They liked his audition well enough that they did a screen test, and his screen test nailed it. So, you know, I as I said earlier in the show, but for Thomas, um, Gunn's good at finding people like that. Look at Chuck Wuji, the guy that played High Evolutionary and Myrn in Peacemaker season 1. Nobody knew who that guy was. But now people are like, hey, he should come back and play Brainiac. Well, Gunn has found his Brainiac. Gunn has found the guy that's going to portray the character as he wants it. Great. There have been some good live action Brainiacs. James Marston, Tom Ritson. I think I'm getting his first name wrong, but on Krypton, and then James Marsters on Smallville. Um, you know, Thomas says, I kind of like it when I don't know the actors when they play superheroes. It's more fun and believable that way sometimes. And I absolutely agree with you on that. Plus, if you think about it, if you take a big name, then you're paying the big money and start it out. If you take a smaller name and you're letting them grow into the character, they're more likely to stick around. What if he wants to do Brainiac for a few movies? What if Brainiac is going to be kind of the Thanos for the DCU? What if we get him in Man of Tomorrow, but he's still kind of in control and he's around for like 2, 3, 4 more movies? But when you get somebody who's unknown and who's willing to come in and do that, you have more flexibility. But if you cast somebody like Matt Smith is going to be like, oh no, I'm just going to do this one movie, but then I've got this going on and that going on. The success Marvel has had is because they found the right people to play the parts, and then got them into situations where they could keep them around, not constantly changing. I mean, you can count on one hand the number of times that a character has been recast in the MCU. And that'll work as well for DCU. Plus, if you think about it, what James Gunn wants to do is use the same actors for television, for live action, and for um, animation. So what if he wants Brainiac to pop up in one of those? Hey Lars, can you record some stuff for us? Sure. Cal says, I'm just here to talk fantasy football. Trust me, the Panthers being number one in the NFC South has been a fantasy of mine for a long time. Um, so yeah, that's it. I think it's a good casting because, and so I won't get fined. Yeah, I think Lawrence is a good casting. I look forward to seeing what he can do. I've looked up a couple of the things he does. He's I'm going to tell you a good way to describe this guy, and it comes from him, but there's a reason for it. He got cast in a movie, and I can't remember which one it was he was talking about, but he got cast because he had done a movie with Adam Driver. And then Adam Driver got offered a role that he couldn't take. And Adam Driver told that director, you should check out Lars Eidinger. He's the German version of me. And I can see that. So, think about it that way. You're getting the German version of Adam Driver in the part. Now, take that what you will, but that came from Adam Driver and Lars Eidinger. So, how do you think listers get made? People take a chance on them as nobodies. Yeah, how do you think A-listers get made? Exactly. You got to start somewhere. I mean, look where Chris Evans is right now. Chris Evans had done some quirky little movies and stuff, and he had always played kind of the smart-ass character. And Marvel went, no, that's our Captain America. And now people think of him as Captain America before anything else. Unless you're just like a really big fan of Scott Pilgrim. I don't think anybody who's a big fan of Scott Pilgrim look at any other movie the same way, Um, it says people who complain about the kind of stuff should be forced to watch the Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, and Captain America movies we had to watch as kids. Yes. Maybe then they'd appreciate what we have more. Or some of the 90s movies. Like before you complain about uh, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantum Mania, you should have to watch Steel, the Halle Berry Catwoman, Jennifer Gardner's Elektra, Thor Love and Thunder. Yeah, I know I'm not a big fan of Thor: Love and Thunder. So, yeah, I mean, that's how you gotta. What we need to do is not believe these scoopers and just kind of, you know, there are certain sites when they put up something, you tend to believe them. You know, there's a rumor or a scoop that came out today having to do with Creature Commandos season two. 1 second, I'm getting a little bit of hiccups. So according to Nexus something, I don't remember the name of the site because it's still a new site to me, but people seem to really trust this site. They're saying that season two of Creature Commandos is starting underway. You know, they're starting to work on the scripts, and one of the characters that will be a recurring character will be Captain Atom. Captain Atom's a powerhouse character. I mean, if you're not familiar with Captain Atom, but you've seen The Watchmen, Captain Atom is what Dr. Manhattan was based on. You know, basically all of the Watchmen characters were based off of characters from Charlton Comics. DC got Charlton Comics or bought out Charlton Comics, got all those characters. Alan Moore came up with this idea to use those characters in this story. And when DC went, we like this idea, but we want to do something with these characters. So we don't want you to basically destroy them. So Alan said, what if I make my own versions? And they went, okay. And what he ended up doing was making characters that were kind of themed on ones from Charlton. Like Peacemaker is the original version of the comedian from Watchmen. Rorschach is the Question. Uh, Owl, Owlman. Don't remember how they use it, but he's Blue Beetle. So and Doctor Manhattan is Captain Atom. So let's see, what else did I miss? Was that one of the screaming goats and naked Thor? I hated that movie. Yes, that's the one. Uh, do you know they dropped Creature Commandos on YouTube because it failed? I thought it was fine. Don't have to watch it again, but I didn't. Sure, it didn't fail. Well, okay. Again, negativity out there. It is Warner Brothers. What they usually do when they do animated series is they will eventually drop them onto YouTube to try to build up an audience because they're a pay channel. So when they drop something like that, it's because they're working on the next one. They hope it's build up an audience. So next, when they announce, Creature Commandos 2 is coming out, people are going to go, oh, cool. I watched the first one on YouTube. I'm going to, I'll subscribe and get it. So it says, I really wanted to like it, but I couldn't stand what they did to Frankenstein's monster in Commando, so I quit watching. Should I give it a try? I liked it. It's a quirky show, um, but I liked it. You know, Thomas says I never heard of that one. Yeah, it's on HBO, but it'll be on YouTube now, so you can watch it for free. Just look up Creature Commandos, and it's based off a comic. Now, it's not the lineup from the comics, or at least the classic lineup, which were basically the Universal monsters. There was a vampire and a werewolf and a mummy, and GI Robot would hang out with them sometimes. But yeah, it's with the animated Creature Commandos. They took Rick Flag Sr., which was part of the Creature Commandos, the Bride, Nina, who's this fish woman, GI Robot, Dr. Phosphorus, and Weasel. And Weasel is a weird character from Marvel, from DC. I mean, he exists, but they used him in Suicide Squad He gets what appears to be killed almost instantly in the movie, and then ends up coming back at the end in the post credits or whatever it is. And then they put him into the Creature Commandos, and you end up you end up liking the guy. He becomes sympathetic. Yeah, those DC shorts they were doing on the movies for a while, those were great. Did you know that Steve Niles wrote one of those? The one with was it Spectre? There's a horror one on one of them, and it has this. Yeah, I think it was a Spectre. Now I got to think about that. Yeah, Steve Niles wrote a DC animated movie or short. Let's see if we can find that real quick. Steve Niles DC animated short. Yeah, the Spectre. So if you can find the DC, the Spectre, yeah, that's Steve Niles. Steve's an old friend, and I love when he gets work like that. Uh, the times I've worked with Steve has always been fun. I had a reader come up when we were doing the 30 Days a Night series together. And he said, I can tell what you write and what Steve writes. I'm like, how can you tell? He goes, Steve writes slashers. Steve, is quick and, jump scares and that kind of horror. I said, uh huh. He says, and you write, more methodical, more slow paced and build up stuff. I went, oh, okay. I get that. And it's true. We're different types of storytellers, but when we work together, it works really well. So we did 30 Days a Night together. We did the Steve Niles Strange Cases, yeah, for Image. And we also did Savage at Image, which were all a lot of fun. So anyway, wow, we're so far off topic. But sticking with DC, it was included in the Justice League Crisis on Two Earths. There you go. Spectre one is fantastic. Yeah, I thought so too. Um, the news on last week we were talking about Scarlett Johansson being cast in the Batman 2, and that's the other thing that Nexus group who's talking about Captain Atom, they're the ones who are talking about that, are the ones that originally announced that Scarlett Johansson was going to be on the Batman 2. By the way, hit the like and subscribe, will you? If you haven't subscribed to me, I do this every week. So you can come back and we can talk comics anytime. Well, every Sunday. All right. So now they're saying that Scarlett is likely going to play Gilda. She's got another last name, but it's Gilda Gold, I think it is. And she becomes Gilda Dent. And if they're doing the long Halloween, then that's pretty much the big thing there. You know, if you do the long Halloween, she's involved in the plot on that in a large way. But if they're just doing Harvey's story, then she's a minor character. So why would you bring in Scarlett for that? So Tom says you're a comic author. That's awesome. What are you working on currently? Currently, I've been doing stuff for Ethereal, which is a little more mature reader. But I'm doing some novel stuff for a company right now. I'm working on my own writing along with something for a publisher to take some comic characters and do novels with. But in the past, I've done stuff for Top Cow, for Shadowline. I wrote Shadowhawk for Jim Valentino. I worked on 30 Days a Night. I did a bunch of stuff for Zenoscope. I worked on all their series there. Um, yeah. Right now, I'm more focused on prose work, but then I do the comics for Ethereal. So, and I'm always open for more comic work too. Oh, thank you, Thomas. Yeah, I used to do a show on the EXP too. Originally, we were doing 3 days a week. Then we cut it down to one. But so yeah. But I've always enjoyed. I also spent 5 years writing articles for Bleeding Cool, so I got used to kind of covering the news, the comic world and stuff. I did a lot of the um, TV and film stuff over there. So yes, I do crochet. I haven't crocheted as much lately, but I need to. Um, yeah, I did write the Headless Horseman for Zenoscope. Also did their Sinbad series. I've worked on Grim Fairy Tales. I worked on their Hook series. Uh, yeah, it's a lot of fun. I love doing comics, and I've got my own novels out there as well. So, but this is kind of my side gig right now. Um, but we're talking about Long Halloween. Long Halloween, if you haven't read it, is one of the most celebrated Batman stories by Tim Sale and Jeff Loeb. Uh, a lot of people think we're going towards Hush in the next movie, but they could be. Parts of Long Halloween were the building blocks for the first Batman movie. So it'd be interesting to see what they continue with and what they don't. Um, yeah, I mean, the bottom line is they're not doing a one-to-one adaptation. They rarely do that in comics. I mean, Supergirl is going to be a one-to-one adaptation, mostly a one-to-one adaptation of Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. But most of the time they take bits of stories and stuff and make their own. And that's what they're doing with the Batman. Bottom line, it's going to be a murder mystery of some sort. Um, Bringing in Scarlett Johansson kind of makes you think she's going to be the killer, but that may not be the case. We haven't seen who they're getting to be Dent. And does that really fit? The problem comes down to what they consider a movie, because Matt Reeves has said that what they're going to do hasn't really been done in a movie, which Long Halloween was turned into an animated movie. Uh, Batman Mask of the Phantasm, that everybody seems to think is a possibility, that was made into an animated movie. Hush has been made into a movie. Now, the only differences between Hush and, and Long Halloween and then the Mask of the Phantasm is that Mask of the Phantasm was actually released into theaters, where the other two were straight to video movies. So don't know how he's phrasing that, but I think I'm going to hold out until we get a little more information, maybe some more casting. Now that movie's going to have to start production by the summer at the latest, because it's supposed to be out in October of 2027. And we know that Man of Tomorrow is out in July of 2027, and it's going to start in production about April or May. So that's going to have to happen soon. And once that we get closer and closer, we're going to be hearing more announcements, like how we've heard about Brainiac yesterday. It was funny. I was actually putting some articles together for a site that I do just a couple on every weekend. And I wrote the first one, and I was sitting there going, huh, I need another article. What did James Gunn post? Well, hello, thank you. Okay, Thomas says, I'm sure you've been great, Eddie. I love your weirdo rope channel. You guys have awesome chemistry and comedy together on those videos. Hydra too. Sorry I missed you live last night. Okay. I need to go check those out. We're dopes. Well, all right. So yeah, that's what's going on with DC. So we got our Brainiac. We may be getting Captain Atom in the animated version of the universe, which means that whoever voices Captain Atom in Creature Commandos would also be Captain Atom in live action. So whoever they're going to cast, they're going to get somebody like that. It's not just going to be a voice actor, because the bottom line is Gunn is treating them all like the same. So if they end up bringing Frankenstein's monster into a live action, then it's going to be David Harbour. You know, just if Dr. Phosphorus comes in, it's going to be Alan Tudyk. If, well, we already seen Weasel in live action, and that it was Sean Gunn, who's also um, Maxwell Lord. Kind of interesting. All right, so let's put that aside for now. We got about another 15 minutes to chat. The DC or the Marvel Doomsday teasers that are coming out. The fact that Steve Rogers will be back. Now, I see online a lot of people going, "Oh, they're disrespecting Anthony Mackie and his version of his Sam Wilson as Captain America," and it's like, no, they're not, because what they do is they show Steve in the past that he built a life with Peggy. They have a kid. That's all we see. And then we get the line, Steve Rogers will return in Avengers Doomsday. Not Captain America, Steve Rogers. So they're not taking that back from Sam. He's still Captain America. So again, people are looking for things to be upset about and to complain about. Now, how do you guys feel about Chris Evans returning along with Robert Downey Jr.? It's almost like oh, we're ending Endgame with goodbyes to Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans. We're closing that door and we're moving forward to the future. And then they went, oh, our movies aren't doing as well. We're bringing back Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. I'm hoping it's a good story. I've wanted to see what happens to Steve in the past. I know what I would do as a writer. I would love to have him go back and then do some Invader stories at that point. Do at least one Invaders movie. You know, you've got a Namor now. You could bring him back. You could make an android Torch. You could bring some other characters in from the Invaders comics and do a World War II superhero movie, a World War II version of the Avengers, basically. You know, I would love to see them do that. And if Chris Evans was up for coming back to do it, I think it would be awesome. So, yeah, that's. So for me, Steve Rogers coming back sounds great. But, you know, they had good endings for those characters, so they have to be careful. Hey, Rachel. Unless they were always planning on bringing them back. Now, that's a good point. Now, I'm going to assume they weren't because of how much has changed. Because originally they were going to do the Kang Dynasty, and they had Destin Daniel Cretton lined up to direct it and stuff like that. And then the Russo brothers came back. They brought one of the writers back from the Avengers movies. So I think that maybe it wasn't always the plan, but it also sounds like it was Kevin Feige who had the idea. So maybe he did. Maybe that was always his thought. I don't know. Do you think they had it planned back then or because they're losing viewers? Um, you know, this may be pie in the sky thinking, but I don't think it's necessarily because they think they're losing viewers. I think it was probably story driven. I don't think they would have done it just to do it because they really did have a nice closing of the door. So to bring them back, I think they had to be confident that what they were bringing them back for was good. Because Yes, people haven't been loving some of the more recent movies. Thunderbolts did great, or was well received. Fantastic Four was pretty well received. Captain America: Brave New World wasn't as much. There's been a lot of hits or misses, but nothing huge except for Deadpool and Wolverine. But if they come out and fail with an Avengers movie, it's done. Avengers can't fail. Avengers can't do 400, 500,000 and they're done. It has to hit. So if they're doing something, if they're bringing these characters back, it has to be more than just to put their names on the top line. It has to be a story that they really wanted to do, because this is everything. It's kind of like with James Gunn. His Superman movie had to work. It didn't have to make a huge amount, but it had to get the fans talking about it again, and it had to get people wanting to see the next one and explore the rest of the DCU. This has to get people back that feeling, because you remember how you felt when you walked out of Endgame, right? There was a culmination. If they had closed shop right then, it would have been considered the greatest run of movies ever. But they've kept going and stuff, and some of it has been good and some of it hasn't. So, I think there was a bit of switching things around, having to change from Kang to Doom. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. Uh, Rachel says, can't really say. I thought they thought the Kang stuff was going to work. Yeah, I'm sure they thought the Kang stuff was going to work. And you know what? With Kevin Feige, I don't think he would have gave up on the Kang stuff if it wasn't for the trouble Jonathan Majors got in. Kevin Feige isn't one to give up. This is the guy that made Thor: The Dark World important to Avengers Endgame. This is the guy that, kind of rehabilitates the ones that don't do that well. Trevor Slattery. Oh, everybody hated the fact that he wasn't the real Mandarin and the whole bait and switch. And now Trevor is popping up in a TV series after having popped up in a movie, and he's one of the main things that people are marketing the TV show on. So no, I don't see them. If it wasn't for Jonathan Majors' legal trouble, I don't think they would have bailed on it. I think we still would have gotten the Kang Dynasty, and they would have continued down that path, because I think Kevin Feige has faith in the directions they're going and what they're doing, and thinks that they can adjust on the fly. So, yeah, I don't see them changing just because the, you're gonna make me talk about Quantumania. I don't dislike Quantumania. I actually liked the movie. I thought there was a lot of good stuff in it. And the biggest complaint I hear from people is that Kang got beat by Ant-Man. And first thing I say is, no, Kang got beat by two Ant-Men, two Wasps, an army of rebels, an army of giant ants, and a turncoat MODOK and Stature, or whatever name she's going to use. Take it easy, Jay. So, no, I don't think Kang, he's weak because of that. Yeah. For some reason, there's this narrative that people think that these characters should be where they are at the end. Oh, Superman got his ass kicked. Superman got his ass kicked in the movie by someone with the exact same power set, a clone, being led by somebody who's studied fighting, when Superman doesn't have any fight training at this point. He's used to using his powers. He's only been on the go for what, 3 months or something? Was it 3 years? Or he's only been around for a certain amount of time. There haven't been a whole lot of people on his level to deal with. So of course he got his ass kicked, but he then beat the thing at the end. Isn't that like the hero's journey? You get defeated and you come back. Isn't that the story of Rocky? Rocky got beat by Apollo Creed in the first movie. He didn't win until the second. It's the fact that people weren't allowing character growth. That's what's going on with these things. Kang gets his ass kicked in the comics all the time, constantly. It's not a Kang comic book, it's an Avengers comic book, and he loses. It's what villains do, and then they come back with a new plan, and they come back stronger. So if Kang lost, and I don't think he was beating the crap out of Ant-Man one-on-one. He didn't have his suit, and just straight out, his suit got destroyed. So I don't get the whole narrative that Kang was suddenly weak because he lost to Ant-Man. That's what villains do, and then they come back with a bigger, stronger plan. Squirrel Girl beat Thanos, and yes, that's. Didn't Squirrel Girl also beat Galactus? Ed says, it wouldn't surprise me knowing how Feige, if he threw Kang back in our faces somewhere. Yeah, I expect Kang to pop up, and it wouldn't be surprised if it's Majors or if it's somebody else. I don't think we're done with Kang. I think he will show up at some point in Doomsday. So, that's the whole thing. Or the heroes are supposed to triumph over the villains. So it happens. It doesn't mean, then in the movies, they seem to just beat them once and then kill them and they're gone. No, they come back with bigger plans, better plans, If Matt Reeves decided to bring the Riddler back in the third movie, or that, I don't see a problem with that if that's what he wants to do, as long as it's a good story. Now, it's kind of nonsense, but it's the narrative that's out there. I think Kang was going to be fine. I thought Jonathan Majors actually was playing the role very well. It's his legal troubles that I think shut everything down. And I wouldn't surprise me if they find a way to at least clean up, if not bring Kang back. So, all right, guys. I think that is going to be it for today. I thank you all for joining me. I saw some new faces. Rachel, thank you very much for coming on. Thomas, it's been a pleasure meeting you. Ed, of course, and Jay here. You guys are great. Please, again, if you haven't hit the like and subscribe buttons, please do so if you're on Facebook or if you're on YouTube. Or, I still send this out to Twitch, so I don't think I have anybody who watches it on Twitch. But let people know about the show. I'm doing this every Sunday. I'll be back next Sunday. So we'll figure out what we talk about then. Otherwise, Christmas is around the corner. So happy holidays to everybody. If you're Jewish, happy Hanukkah. Happy Kwanzaa. I'm trying to remember all the different holidays. Happy Festivus if you celebrate that. Whatever it is, I hope you guys have a great holiday. Merry Christmas. Whatever it is that the way you celebrate it, please. I hope it's absolutely wonderful. You have great time with your family, your friends, and come see me next Sunday. Let's talk. Have a great weekend and a great holiday. Good night, everybody.